The days are getting shorter, the temperatures are getting colder, and soon enough, maybe some snow will try to fall out of this window here. It is time for our winter weather preview here at the Press of Atlantic City, and we have two really, truly smart and special guests here. We have Judah Cohen. You're going to hear him in the first half of this segment. He is a seasonal forecasting legend. He comes to us from AER, which is in Massachusetts. And then in the second half, you're going to hear from Jim Sullivan, who's the chief meteorologist for WeatherWorks, who him and their team, they spend hundreds of hours preparing a winter weather forecast. So we're going to get thoughts from both of them here. Last winter had more snow than the previous winter, which was a record low. But if you're a snow lover, you probably still weren't all that thrilled in South Jersey with the snow here. We'll see if things are different as we go into the winter season. I will say this as a little bit of a tease. If you are looking for snow, it does look like the early part of winter will be your best chance for that. So we'll dive into the full thing here. Without further ado, here is the Something in the Air podcast with Judah Cohen and Jim Sullivan. Like I said, I always look forward to October as we talk about the winter ahead. And the first of our two guests here is someone, if you're on Twitter, you know him very well if you're in the weather world. Judah Cohen, the director of seasonal forecasting for atmospheric and environmental research in Lexington, Massachusetts. Over 18,000 Twitter followers and counting to this date. Judah, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always happy to talk about the winter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even though I'm in short sleeves right now, it is currently October 1st when we're recording this. It is just around 70 degrees here in New Jersey. So I'm trying to hold out to the short sleeves. But Judah, we've done plenty of things before. So everybody listening and watching, we have done some articles on our website, pressofac.com. But this is the first time actually seeing you in the flesh, in the Zoom flesh, I should say. And let me just start out with just introduce us about yourself. Tell us, where you're from originally, what your work's focusing on, and your journey to becoming who you are today.
Right. So most people know that I love snow. And when they ask me, where are you from? They expect me to say I'm from Buffalo or maybe the UP of Michigan. I tell them I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I think most people are disappointed. It's not thought of as the snow capital of the world, but maybe I just got enough of a tease in Brooklyn to, so when you live in an urban landscape, when you see snow, it's so transformative of the area and the city. Not for long in New York City, but at least for a day or two, it's magical. I guess I got really hooked. I do research. I guess, I love snow, so I was really curious about winter weather. Wanted to know more about it, how to maybe predict longer term for those good winter patterns, those sweet spots where you get the cold and the snow, and then translate that also into making a long range winter. I do all seasons. I think we do a good job in the summer too, but I'm definitely best known for the winter forecast.
Yeah, and just like you said. You love snow, and there's a load of people who love snow. Like, what do you think it is about winter? Is snow really just that sexy where people just can't stop looking forward? Because you don't really get that from about April to November. But then once Thanksgiving hits, everyone's eyes are always thinking, what's happening next? What's happening next?
Well, I think people are passionate about snow. Certainly seems to be plenty of haters out on Twitter about the snow and complain. So except for Christmas, it seems like the only week when everybody's on the same page, but and everybody wants some snow holiday, decoration of snow. But it seems people are definitely passionate, love it or hate it.
Yeah, and I would be remiss without saying that you and I both know my meteorological father, as I call him, Dave Robinson, New Jersey State climatologist. He's on with us once a month. How do you guys know each other? Where did you guys meet?
Well, we overlapped at Columbia. He was a grad student, and I was an undergrad when we first met. And we both shared this passion for snow. If I remember correctly, I think he was working at the time with George Kukla. I hope I got that name correct. Someone who had done a lot of work with snow. And it's great. I mean, Dave has kept it up, and has a great website on snow cover that I use all the time. And
yep, that's the Rutgers Global Snow Lab that he manages. So He is, man, you guys are pretty close for who's the snow king, either you or him. I'm not really sure. But let's dive into it. Let's talk about your research here. You have gained plenty of traction in recent years for your unique way of forecasting for the winter ahead. So just tell everybody what that is, and if we could kind of push the envelope a little bit, what are we looking at as we go into October?
October is the month where you see the greatest advance in snow cover across the whole northern hemisphere. You might not think of it as October, but that's the month where the snow cover really makes this big advance. And I focus on the region of Siberia. So people think, well, why does Siberia affect our weather? It's not intuitive, and it's certainly got a lot of resistance and skepticism to the ideas. But very quickly, if there's more snow in Siberia in the month of October, we tend to get colder winters in the eastern U.S. If there's less snow, we tend to get milder winters.
Sure.
And looking at it, it's only October 1st. And the models are notoriously poor at predicting snowfall in Siberia. So people might think, they can't predict snow in New Jersey or elsewhere here in the eastern U.S., but I think they're even worse in Siberia. So I don't want to make too, so the forecasts are showing are bullish on snow cover or snowfall in Siberia. It looks like for October. Certainly the conditions seem conducive to a rapid advance of snow cover. So, this is really early on, but that would be at least an early suggestion, indication of maybe a period of severe winter weather.
All right,
here
so
in the East US.
Yeah, now I'm already getting excited, Judah, because down here in southeastern New Jersey, we have not been good the past couple of years. 2 winters ago, we had 0 snow, actual 0 in Atlantic City. That was rough. That was a rough winter. Last year, we did okay. We ended up generally between 4 to 8 inches, so better than last year. But for you and me, it's just not enough.
Well, the snow was a lot closer last year. There were parts of New Jersey that got quite a bit of snow.
Yes, that is true. If we were a northern New Jersey podcast, we would have no complaints here. But that day, and you bring that up, that was January 31st to February 3rd. It was 4 days long. We did get some snow in southeastern New Jersey. Atlantic City International Airport picked up around 2 inches. But that was it. That storm for us, Judah, was really a coastal flooding storm. We had consecutive high tides that were in moderate flood stage, and I was walking out in those waters in Atlantic City. Yeah. The water, I couldn't even walk too far because I have these boots on that go up to your knees. It was going above that in some spots. Wow. So that's what I remember from that. But yes, northern half of the state was a crazy event for them.
Yeah. The other thing that also I look at October, looking at sea ice anomalies, where the sea ice is high, where sea ice is low, tends to be more low and lower these days. But the region that is really, I think, important for our winter weather is near Scandinavia. It's called, they break up the Arctic Ocean into different seas. It's called the Barents-Kara Seas. So it's near Scandinavia over towards the Urals, if people are familiar with that, but that North Atlantic side of the Arctic. And sea ice looks to be low there. I think that's where the big negative anomalies, so where there's a lack of sea ice, are going to form, heading into the late fall and early winter. Again, I think that is an early sign of, possibly more severe winter weather. So, early on, it looks great. I don't know if it's, great if you like winter, not so great if you want not your winter's mild, not wild.
Mild, not wild. I like that. This is why we have you on, Judah. I know you always have the sayings for us. So go ahead, keep going.
All right. Yeah. So, but it's really early, and it could be too much too soon. The weather, I do believe is there's foreshadowing, and then there's the head fake. Right. And knowing the difference between the two, the devil's in the details, and obviously can make a big difference. So it's really early. I get spooked when things look really good, really early, but they look about as good as I think they can look. As far as, and again, my ideas, again, I don't know if you want me to jump into this. I have to bring in the notorious polar vortex right before we
go for it.
Before I get the hook here,
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop the polar vortex.
Of course. Let's say it's a winter weather podcast. I mean, you might as well. It's the elephant in the room for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, I really do believe that with climate change, it's very difficult to get an extended period of severe winter weather without kind of some disruption of the polar vortex. And, I'm happy to go into some simple explanations of the polar vortex. So if we're trying to anticipate, or at least me, trying to anticipate, maybe a more severe winter, at least an extended period of severe winter weather, trying to get these early clues what's going to happen with the polar vortex. If it's disrupted, an increase in probability or likelihood of getting more cold, more snow. If that polar vortex stays strong, then it's very hard to get cold weather or really a big snowstorm. It tends to just be mild and rainstorms here certainly in the mid-Atlantic into the northeastern U.S. So, but I think more snow, less ice, I try to argue is conducive to disrupting or weakening that polar vortex that then is followed by an increase in severe winter weather.
Right. And, something that's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I heard it, La Nina and El Nino. How do you parlay that into your winter forecast, if at all?
It's in there, it's in the forecast. I don't emphasize it as much as other people, even though, Dave Robertson, we know him more, we associate him more with snow. But he's a big believer. He's much more into the drinking the Kool-Aid of El Nino, La Nina than I do. Of course, it's important. It's the most important, weather pattern across that global. When you take it into global, I think when you move out of the tropics, it gets less and less important. But certainly globally, it is the most important dominant weather feature pattern, or teleconnections is the term we use.
Right.
So, La Nina, I do think favors less snow in the mid-Atlantic. So we got nothing but snow lovers. I have to hold back on the tomatoes and the eggs. But there seems to be a pretty good relationship between, La Nina, less snow in the mid-Atlantic. El Nino favors more snow. I think it's that relationship stronger, like towards DC. They've also been kind of a bit of a snow drought. So, La Nina looks kind of weak. Maybe it'll just fade out before the winter. Maybe that's good news if you're a snow lover in the mid-Atlantic area.
Yeah.
As far as the polar vortex, there's studies looking at the, does the La Nina or El Nino favor more disruption of the polar vortex, with the thinking being that more disruption of the polar vortex tends to lead to an increase in winter weather, severe winter weather. At first, the studies were coming out saying El Nino favors a more disrupted polar vortex. Then it got very confusing, and I don't know what the latest is. Maybe that maybe both can lead to disruption of the polar vortex. I certainly have plenty of last year I had a pretty spectacular disruption of the polar vortex, and it was La Nina.
Yeah. Right. So and with that, sorry, Judah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I don't put too much weight on. I think what happens in the Arctic is more important. If you get the right conditions, El Nino, La Nina, the polar vortex is going to get disrupted. But I think but where trying to take the consensus of the community, La Nina favors a stronger polar vortex, which would tend to mean milder weather in the eastern U.S.
Judah, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. JudahCohen.org is his website. You can also look up his blogs that he posts to his Twitter account, which is, I believe it's Judah. What is it?
Judah47. At Judah47. Yeah,
there you go. At Judah47. Give him a follow. I follow your stuff all the time. So it's great to have you on, Judah. Thanks so much for the time.
I always love talking to you, Joe.
Welcome back to the Something in the Air podcast special winter forecast edition. Thank you again to Judah for the time. And now we have a guest who has been on the show before. He is working in New Jersey. He is Jim Sullivan, the chief meteorologist for WeatherWorks, where I used to work for 4 years. We never crossed paths. I think we just missed each other. By a few months. But it's good to see you, Jim. Good to talk to you as always. And, how you feeling? It's October 1st when we're recording this. How you feeling work-wise?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, certainly great to be back. And no, we're kind of, we're kind of in that relative lull between that very active summer we've had and winter, which is, coming up in a month or two here. So we're in a nice
Yeah.
kind of quiet spell here.
Yeah, yeah, and I know, just from personal experience, like you said, WeatherWorks, this is the end of your summer forecasting for your clients, and you're getting into the winter forecast in November. So I know this is, like you said, definitely a lull. I don't know if you remember last year, but I gave you 2 fill in the blank questions, and I'm going to ask you the same here for this year. So fill in the blank. Last winter was blank in South Jersey.
Irritating if you're a snow lover.
That's a very good one. That's a very good one. Last year's winter forecast was blank for the Mid-Atlantic.
It worked out okay. I thought, we kind of went for, kind of a mild but somewhat up and down winter. Snowfall maybe a little below normal, some mixed events, and that's roughly what happened, especially farther south. Up here we got plenty of snow, but unfortunately there was a really sharp gradient heading south across New Jersey.
Irritatingly sharp, Jim. Irritatingly
That's
sharp.
the word, yes.
Yes, we, I think you can't talk about last winter without talking about that one event from January 31st to February 3rd. It was a really, it was a doozy. So yeah, I mean, I'm here, in Atlantic County, and I'm seeing all my friends, and you included, posting about, oh my God, I got 12 inches of snow. Now I have 24 inches of snow. Some of your coworkers, I think, got 30 inches of snow.
We got roughly 30 inches here in Hackettstown.
For us here in southeastern New Jersey, I'm looking at the rain beating on my window on West Washington Avenue, and then I drive 7 miles to my east to Atlantic City, and we had coastal flooding for multiple high tide cycles. And it wasn't just your minor nuisance flooding. I mean, this was moderate stage. And when you get to moderate stage, that's when you start to get like real issues with damage to property. I was out in Atlantic City one of those days, and it was cold, it was windy, and it was wet. And I had these boots that went up to my knees, and I couldn't even walk all the way in because it was just that much water. But besides that big event, Jim, here at Atlantic City International Airport, we ended up below average. But so Jim, when it comes to winter forecast, right? Even some people at work, they'll say, do I do my own winter forecast? And I have no problem saying I don't, because there is a lot that goes into it. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just you who are looking at this for weeks at a time, but there's multiple people who are looking into this.
Yeah, there's a few of us who look into it and help put the outlooks together. So, and it is a months long process. We start evaluating things in like July, and start sending our initial kind of thoughts to clients in August, and we continuously update them in September and October. So yeah, very long process, and we're looking at everything from water temperatures across the world to patterns in the atmosphere to and as we get into fall, we can start monitoring kind of, fall is when winter starts showing its face a little, especially October and November. I know you had Judah on, and he was talking about, snow cover in Siberia. That's kind of an example of it starts showing its face a little bit in fall. So we're kind of on the precipice now of when we can start honing in a little bit better.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, Judah's great. And, we all love Judah, but when it comes to, what's happening this winter, something that he actually didn't mention too much, but, you mentioned to me was La Nina and the development of La Nina, or the continuation of La Nina as we go into the fall and winter. Right. And just let's do some meteorology 101. Let's explain what La Nina is, what El Nino is, and then more specifically, what can you tell us about La Nina and how it's going to relate to us this winter?
Yeah, so El Nino, La Nina, it's kind of a water temperature phenomenon across the equatorial Pacific. So when El Nino is when those waters across the equator and the Pacific are warm, La Nina is the opposite. It's when they're chilly. Last winter was a moderate La Nina. Yeah, like you said, Joe, looks like this winter is going to be another La Nina. This one, at the moment, it's on the weak side. I don't think it's going to be stronger than last winter's La Nina. Might get close to it though, but we're not talking about a big event, so it's a factor this winter. But since it's on the weaker side, it might not dominate the pattern. So other things might come into play.
So like Judah said, are you saying, is that where that Siberian snow cover and the ice near Scandinavia, are you guys in agreement on looking at that and making that a good part of your forecast?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that can contribute. And again, when El Nino or La Nina are very strong, they tend to overwhelm the pattern. But yeah, a year like this where they're a little bit weaker, other things can have a bigger influence. So typically in a La Nina, the cold dumps into like the northwestern United States, into the upper Midwest, and here on the East Coast, we tend to be milder. Again, not 100% of the time, but typically. But with a weaker event, something like that Siberian snow cover, if it can lead to blocking and the jet stream, it can help force that cold farther south and east. So yeah, something like Siberian snow cover, if we get blocking from that and from some other things, it could lead to maybe a colder, snowier outcome than last winter.
Gotcha. Something you always like to mention, and I think this is great, is something called analog years, where
Yeah.
you're kind of looking at, hey, here's what's happening up to this point, and we're talking on October 1st, and getting some other years that have been similar. And you actually gave me, I think it was 13 analog years. So we got a lot to go off of based on those analog years. And if you don't mind, just give us a couple specific years. What were those years like? What were those winters like?
Yeah, so they were very boom or bust down there in the Atlantic City area. And the big determining factor in terms of what boomed and what didn't was if there was that blocking. So I'll go through some recent ones that people may remember. Yes, last year is an analog because we're kind of looking at another La Nina, kind of similar to last year. Last year was more of a bust down there, but it was a boom just to the north, which isn't uncommon. A lot of times La Ninas do favor farther north towards like upstate New York and New England for more snow. So last year, a bit of a bust. 17-18 is an analog, and that was a boom for you guys. You had a huge storm at the beginning of January. It was very cold around the holidays. 13-14 is an analog. That was a pretty cold and snowy winter. But then another analog is 11-12, which was the complete opposite. A lot, I think you might have crunched the numbers, but I kind of noticed looking at these for Atlantic City, they either had very little snow and were very mild, or they had a fair amount of snow.
Yeah. Obviously we talked about last winter, 17-18. That was my first year here. And I remember we got that snowstorm, I believe in December, maybe it was I think it was very early January. Yeah. Can't remember the other. But we had 12 to 18 inches along the coast, and you don't see that often. You really need a nor'easter that is far enough east where around that counterclockwise spinning low, you get north winds for us, and it keeps it cold. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, this is great. I said, this is exactly what I was looking for. And then 11-12, real quick, it was known as the March, Torch and March put together, because that March specifically, and I was at Rutgers then, but I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, 70s, couple of 80s during the day, and it was a very long streak of that. I mean,
in March,
it wasn't just a couple of days. It was a lot of days like that. And we were playing football after one of our meteorology classes out in the field over at Skelly Field over on Cook campus at Rutgers, but good times there. So just looking forward, given everything you're saying, here's the $1 million question. What do you believe is the best idea of what's going to happen this winter?
Yeah, so kind of a middle ground approach for now, but so those winters, those analogs, kind of said they're very boom or bust. The ones that were snowy, they had that blocking in the jet stream. That's where the jet stream kind of buckles at the higher latitudes and it sends cold air south. And it's a little bit early, but signs so far this fall do point to maybe some blocking this year. So I don't want to say that you'll get a 17-18 or 13-14 repeat, but I am optimistic that it's not going to be like an 11-12 or like 19-20 a couple years ago where you guys got almost no snow. So I would maybe lean near normal temperatures, but with a lot of swings. I think there's going to be a lot of cold air lurking to the north. So I think at times it will warm up and we'll get some mild stretches. But I think when it gets cold, it can get legitimately cold. And I think it's a fairly active pattern. So, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that a couple times you get everything to line up and get a couple of nice snow events and, squeak out average snow. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. going back to irritating, sometimes when we talk about winter weather patterns, I'm talking from the snow lover's perspective. So if you don't like snow, think the opposite here. But sometimes when it's cold, it's dry. And then the precipitation comes and we warm up. So in other words, it's too cold to snow. That's the general term you might hear. There's backstory to that. But are you saying we probably wouldn't see something like that?
Yeah, not nonstop. No. If it's an active pattern and there's blocking, I think that's going to be hard to have that happen because that happens when there's no blocking, because you get your cold shot and then the big system comes and brings your moisture, but it also brings warm air with it. And if there's no blocking, there's nothing to stop the warm air from flooding in. But if you get that blocking pattern, it's nice and cold, you get a system that comes and it doesn't immediately turn to rain. So I think a lot of this winter will hinge on blocking.
Okay.
I do think that we do get some spells of it though. So there's some hope, I think, compared to last year even.
Gotcha. So potentially a roller coaster ride this winter. And again, this is a forecast. Things can change, of course, and Jim will be updating as we go on throughout the winter. But, it does look like we have our highs and lows, and whether you're a snow lover or not, maybe a little bit of something for everybody. We'll see what happens there.
We can hope.
We can hope. We can hope. Jim, before we wrap up, we got to do what we do with all of our special guests here. We didn't do it with Judah, but we are going to do it with you. And, listen, you're not from New Jersey natively, but you've been here long enough where I think you could get us a North, I don't know if you have Central or not, or South Jersey map. So we're going to put that image up. Tell me what you got.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I've been here long enough to give you a rough estimate. I think me personally, again, this is from a very meteorological kind of point of view. That's kind of what guided it. I kind of look at roughly north of 78 as North Jersey. That includes the New York City Metro. That includes, the hilly Northwest New Jersey. It's the part of the state that sees the most snow as well. And then kind of Central Jersey, roughly the 95 corridor. That's the transition zone. That's kind of what I look at Central Jersey as. And then Southern Jersey, I look at, the shore, the Pines, and places like Camden County. That's kind of my rough breakdown. That's how I lump it together.
Jim, you know what? Out of all, we've done a couple so far. I'm with you the closest on this one. I think you said 195 to 78 is like roughly Central Jersey.
Yeah, I'd say so. Something like that. Monmouth County kind of points north.
Listen, I've been saying that for a while. So the only thing I would change, in my opinion, I would go from Jackson. I would draw a line from Jackson to Tom's River. I would make that Central Jersey. But hey, listen, this is your map, not mine. So that's why we're here. Jim, just tell us where we could find more of this kind of winter weather information, more of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So, on our WeatherWorks social media pages and YouTube channel, we haven't done it yet, but we will be in October and November. We'll have some blog posts. We'll probably have a video or two. And I think we're also going to have a podcast that we're taping, I believe, here in the Weather Lounge. Yeah. And I believe they're going to have me on that somewhere around the middle of October. So, pretty much right around the same time as this. So, so look for the podcast and check out our social media pages. They will be sharing them as we put them together.
Absolutely. WeatherWorksInc.com is their website as well. You can check out more about their services that they offer. They're a private weather consulting business. So what they do is very unique as well. And I've been there, so I can attest to that. And they do plenty of meteorologists do a very good job over there. This is it, everybody. This was our winter forecast preview. We have an article that's on our website as well. Might even do another video on this about the winter to come too. That might come in the coming weeks, but at least you have this, you have the article, you have Judah, you have Jim, you have Joe. I didn't even think about that. 3 J's.
All the J's, yeah.
All the J's for our podcast here. But thank you everybody for watching. We're going to be back with you at the beginning of November. We are going to be with New Jersey State climatologist Dave Robinson, my weather dad. We're going to be talking about the month of October that was. So until then, everybody, hope you enjoyed this fall weather. We'll be back with you in early November. Take care.